I'm Devin Dabney,
I'm Kris Hampton.
and this is how
Hip-hop taught me
Hip-hop taught me creativity,
playfulness,
humility,
courage,
motherhood.
everything. Okay, first of all, if you haven't listened to this week's episode, Ski Mask the Slump God Taught Me Humility, go do that right now. And because it's a music and talk podcast, it's only available on Spotify. And with Spotify Premium, you're able to listen to the full song right after the episode plays, which in this case, the song is Foot Fungus. It's still weird to say that. God. No, before we get into our actual liner notes, Kris, I have a question for you this time.
All right, I'm ready.
What is your guilty pleasure song? And for clarity's sake, a guilty pleasure song doesn't have to be like a pop song. Like, it really just means a song that you feel like embarrassed to listen to around other people, but you secretly love.
Mhm. So when you first posed this question to me, I thought of it as like when you're bumping something really loud, but then you pull up to a red light and there's people there already, and you're like, "Oh, gotta turn this down," you know.
Kinda.
That's how I thought of it. And my answer's kind of complicated because now that I'm ancient, I don't really get embarrassed
Oh,
anymore.
really? Huh.
I'm just kind of like, I'm gonna listen to whatever the fuck I want.
Dang, must
Like,
be
I've
nice.
been there, done that, youngin. You know, that's kind of how I feel. I'll do what I want now. But I will say that one of my guilty pleasures, which I really own now, like
Mhm.
I fully own it now, is George Strait's entire catalog.
Yes.
Like, just the best fucking storyteller.
Yes.
I fucking love it. I listened to his like 100 number ones or whatever album
Yeah.
straight through. I fucking love it.
Dude, I didn't even think about other genres. What am I doing? Holy shit. I almost want to like stop the recording and think about this again. That's so good.
Well, I did have a hip hop one as well, and if I had to choose a hip hop one, it would be Jib's Chain Hang Low.
Oh man. I would unabashedly bump that song today.
Yeah, I will not turn it down at a red light. I might turn it up actually, but it's not the kind of song I'm normally listening to. But every time it comes on, I just can't help myself.
Man,
I love it.
good grief. That's a great one, dude. You know, I mean, I guess I wouldn't have changed my answer necessarily because I will unabashedly bump country music. I don't give a fuck. Like I
Mhm.
love country music. You know, this was tough for me to answer because most music I will listen to like and not turn down at a red light. The one thing that I do turn down is gangster rap. Like I feel
Mm.
because of my like temperament and it almost for me to be listening to it, I always feel like I'm not supposed to be listening to gangster rap. And it's not because like I wasn't raised around it or anything. I just feel like because I'm not a gangster that I don't like deserve to listen to. It's a really weird thing that I have. But the song I specifically think of is Easy Does It by Easy E. And
Yeah.
one of the main reasons that I think of that song is because I don't say bitches in regular conversation. I don't like that term for women at all, actually. But the
Yeah.
song Easy Does It opens with, well, I'm Easy E. I got bitches galore. You may
Bitches
have a lot
galore.
of bitches,
Yep.
but I got much more. And I fucking love that. It's such
When I was like 13 or 14, I fucking loved that shit.
it's just such that line is why Easy E is great because it isn't like an amazing metaphor, but it's just so simply beautiful of like, you may have 13 bitches, and that is a lot. However, I have much more than 13. And I just love it. I scream that line every time it comes on, and I just would not do that in mixed company.
Yeah, I hear you. And that's really funny because I have this very distinct memory. We're gonna go on a little sidebar
Yeah.
here. I used to teach country line dancing
What? Dude, you've done every fucking thing.
at a country bar, and it was just so much fun to go and dance, and lots and lots of women, and I
Mhm.
was fresh out of college, high school
Mhm.
era, and I remember leaving the country bar
Mhm.
multiple times, and there was a red light that you had to sit at forever. And I would pull up to that red light, and I always played the Chronic when I was leaving the country bar. And I would have it as loud as I could possibly
Yeah.
have it. And every single time, somebody would look over at me with their cowboy hat on, and just bob their heads.
Yeah, you
I was
can't
like,
not, dude.
hell yeah, you can't escape it.
No, no, that's the thing. I mean, and honestly, that kind of you said it was a sidebar, but it kind of relates to this episode's topic of like just having the humility to admit that music is music. I think people get so
Yeah.
wrapped up in this like I don't listen to rap or I don't listen to country or whatever it is, but at the end of the
Hmm.
day, if somebody kicks a beat that is nice and like the music is good and the rhythm is good, you're gonna nod your head. It doesn't matter if it's rap, rock, classical, bluegrass, whatever. Music is music. Um,
Yeah, totally. You know what? Two quick
no,
sidebars
it's fine.
on the topic of hip hop and this whole like guilty pleasures, music being music.
Hmm.
Number one, when I was like young, 12, 13, 14, I really liked Heavy D and the Boys.
Hmm.
Um, and at the time, a lot of the other people that I knew who were listening to hip hop were like, "That shit's soft."
Oh,
What about Wu Tang? And you know, at the time when Wu Tang came out, I'm still listening to Heavy D and the Boys and Wu Tang.
right.
They're like, you're not listening to that hard shit.
Yeah,
Well, now when I listen to all these rappers on podcasts, so many of them are naming Heavy D as an influence or
hmm.
someone they really looked up to or the person that, put them on. And I'm just like, fuck, why did I ever feel like I shouldn't be listening to Heavy D because he's
Dude,
soft?
I have the exact same story from my like adolescence, but this is the generation, I guess, where it shows. For me, that was Kanye West. So I
Mm,
loved like when College Dropout came out, I played that album probably 100, like I probably listened to that whole album every single day for a solid 2 years. And I remember, yeah, my friends like Kanye's soft, like he's not even a rapper, he's a producer. What about like Ti and Lil Flip and Young Buck? And like you,
mhm.
exactly like you said, I was listening to both. And now 20 years later, who are all these people saying that is and I mean the reference is kind of tainted now because of Kanye's public image, but who are all these people saying are a reference like an inspiration to him who just won his 24th Grammy, which is the most
Right.
Grammys any hip hop artist ever has won? Kanye West. It just,
Yeah.
yeah, and that again, it's just like, why are we, why do we do that with music? Like, why are we putting up these invisible boundaries about what's okay to listen to, or like, why does it being hard even matter? I mean, it's a problem with hip hop, and I think it's changing, but yeah, I mean, like, I say all that, but I also had to learn this for myself in terms of old and new music, right? Of like that's what this whole episode with Ski Mask was about, was me letting go of that barrier that I had around old and new and like, oh, the new rappers are trash.
Mhm.
I'm curious for you because I know it's going to be different. Do you remember like when was there like a moment or a time period where you realized or thought, oh man, all these new rappers are trash? Like when you first consciously thought that?
Mm. Um, yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't remember exactly when it was.
Mm-hmm.
I've mentioned here before that I have a 25-year-old daughter, and definitely some of the things she was listening to as a teenager,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, nah, you know. But I also reserve the right to just like some things and not like some things, you
Right.
know? That's totally okay.
Right.
So there's kind of always been new artists that I'm embracing,
Yeah.
but then new artists that I don't necessarily like. I feel like because of my daughter, I've given new artists a chance.
Mm-hmm.
Especially as I get older, I try to give new artists a chance.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would bet that in my 20s, there was a time, and that's too far away for me to remember at this point, but
Yeah,
there was
yeah, they were building the
there was a
pyramids, you know.
there was a time for sure back then where I was like, fuck this new shit.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a I think like you, and I think this is true for anybody, which is what part of why I think it's a fallacy, is like there's always going to be rappers that are not good and rappers that are good. It doesn't matter if it's old or
Mhm.
new. But I can tell you the specific moment that I actually started to think that was I was in college, and I don't know if they still do this, but Double XL used to release ciphers
Mhm.
periodically. So they would gather up all the, the double XL freshmen or the new class of rappers. And it would kind of be
Yep.
this like who's who of the next coming generation of rappers. And there was a double XL cipher that had Denzel Curry, Lil Dicky, Lil Yachty, Lil Uzi Vert, La Lils, and 21 Savage.
This was the age of the
Yeah,
Lils.
yeah, this was definitely it was either the middle of it or it was, like, becoming, like, something else. Because I mean, Denzel Curry was in there, so I think that's when it started to become, "Let's name myself my name," like Kendrick Lamar or whatever. But, yeah, I
Yeah.
remember I remember that cypher because just I remember liking, like, Denzel Curry's verse, and honestly, that was it. And I mean, I love Lil Dicky, but I didn't even like his verse in it. And just like listening to all these rappers that I didn't know at the time, and just half of them I literally could not understand, and half of them like I just thought they were just I don't know. There was a moment when like 21 Savage was rapping where I was like, that's it. Hip hop died. Like it's like this is the benediction. 21 Savage is saying the benediction. And I'm laughing now because like most of those rappers I listen to now. I don't
Yeah.
listen to like Lil Uzi Vert or Kodak Black too much, but I definitely will like I don't know. I don't actively seek out Lil Yachty, but he's definitely had some bars that I'm like, damn, okay, fine. Like you're good. Or like 21 Savage, he's definitely someone I've done a complete 180 on where I actually like him a lot now. But yeah, I distinctly remember that moment where my heart just like dropped. I was like, this is it. My precious
Yeah.
hip hop is dead. And it's just so silly in retrospect because it's no more dead or alive than it was 20 years ago, you know?
Yeah, for sure. When I was younger and like really learning about hip hop, it wasn't so much the like um that you can't understand what they're saying, or they're radically different from what came before. It
Hmm.
was more like they weren't real, quote
Yeah.
unquote
Oh, that's
real,
that's so true
you
too.
know.
Yeah.
Back then there was this whole push in you have to be real, even though, you know, Dre was never a fucking gangster,
Yeah.
you know,
No.
and Cube was never a gangster. They were journalists. They were telling real things,
Yeah.
but they weren't gangsters. Um, and definitely there was this moment with like Vanilla Ice, when Vanilla Ice was really
Right.
popular. And, I'm a fucking white kid who loves hip hop, and I
Hmm.
see Vanilla Ice and I'm like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm like learning the dances to Ice Ice Baby,
Oh, no.
and then
Little did you know. Oh, shit.
and then Third Base comes out with Pop Goes the Weasel,
Mhm.
and I'm immediately like, fuck Vanilla Ice. So much so that years later, a lot of my performances, I would like mid performance, I would start the instrumental to Ice Ice Baby
Mm-hmm.
just to stop the room, because the room would be like,
Mm-hmm.
what the fuck is this? And then it would like record scratch, cut off, and a different beat would come on.
Ah.
And people fucking loved it. And I had a ton of fun with that. But in reality, Ice Ice Baby was kind of a banger.
Yeah, and I mean, even if you look at the lyrics to that song for the '90s, they're pretty good. Like, you know what I mean? Like, especially for the night, like he's got some level 2 similes and metaphors in there. He's not just,
Level two.
you know what I
I
mean?
like
He's
it.
not just like there's some $5 words being thrown around. Like, yeah, like I mean, it just shows like that it's not even really, it never was really necessarily about skill. It's like the zeitgeist, like the culture.
Yeah.
And at a time the culture was centered around skill. It's not anymore. And I think that's probably one of the hardest, has been one of the hardest things for me to let go of. I think of that double XL cipher, and I actually remember either it must have been either soon after that or the year before, but BET has cipher used to have ciphers at the BET Awards,
Mm-hmm.
and s-
Those were great.
oh my god, I think of the Shady cipher, um,
Yeah.
where like I think God, everyone was fucking good, dude. Like I mean, like every rapper was sublime. Like just their verses were good, and then of course Eminem had like one of the best verses that he's ever had. So I go from that to like a bunch of lils that I can't really understand. Not saying, of course, it probably made it seem worse than it actually was, but those are just two literal different culture, like not cultures, but just different parts of the culture. um
Yeah.
and yeah, it just needs to be, I don't know, it just needs to be a little bit more, in my mind, a little bit more accepted that what makes rappers good and what makes rappers successful are both two different things, for one, and also totally subjective. Like, if what's that Kendrick line, like if he says something about like if you cared about rapping, like Killer Mike would be platinum or something.
Killer Mike would be platinum. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's true. I mean, you even said a couple weeks ago when we recorded for a different episode, like one of the best battle rappers ever, Supernatural. I don't know any Supernatural songs.
Yep.
you know
Yep.
um I don't know. And that's why, like, I really, when we were talking about doing recordings or episodes for this podcast, like, this episode was probably the first thing that I thought of, because it was such a huge defining moment in how I looked at hip hop music, and especially being friends with you, someone who also knows hip hop really well. It just gave me a greater appreciation for just like the library of music we have available if you let go of your like misconceptions about what's good and cool.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's talk about the song Foot Fungus.
Hmm. you know I can't really give you a lot of like fun facts, or like, let's just say that there wasn't a lot of like premeditation or like, Ski Mask wasn't like at a chalkboard trying to figure out how the pieces were going to go together, Beautiful Mind style. I think what I've gathered is he kind of just recorded it. What I do think is really interesting though is the process of production that went behind it. um I think I may have even sent you this video, but I found a video
Yeah.
on Genius uh, about like where Kenny Beats explained how he made this beat, and just like his steps in it. And it was so fascinating to hear about his process, right? Like, I've said this a million times. I don't think producers get enough credit, because it's one thing to be a talent, but a producer has to amplify the talent in the right way. And
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, you should just watch the video if you haven't. We can drop a link in the show notes, but it's just so interesting how, like, it has like the beat has these like radio sounds, and Kenny Beats says it's because he had just produced FM for Vince Staples, so he was fucking with radio sounds a lot.
Yep.
And he talks about like, if you just listen to the song, like just the lyrics, you would think there's nothing to it, but but when you listen to how he explains the beat and the different parts of it, it's a story. Like it's a literal progression of all these different parts that you're not even like consciously paying attention to, but it
Right.
enhances what Ski Mask is performing, right? Um, yeah, I don't know. I'm talking a lot, so I should let you talk, but I just wanted to highlight how much I appreciate that something that looks simple is not necessarily simple. And just because someone makes something look easy or it feels simple, especially with music, it's not always simple.
Yeah, I agree. I thought that video was really great.
Mhm.
I've watched a lot of like how this song was produced type videos, and that's for sure one of the best ones. I love that what Kenny Beats is doing is, he's more than a beat maker at
Mhm.
that point. He's producing the song.
Right.
He's making it specifically at that point for Ski Mask, and it's like he understands what Ski Mask is doing and trying to
Mhm.
mold it to fit him.
Yep.
And that, like, the gelling of the two of them is brilliant,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
There was something I noticed when looking at the album that I thought was hilarious.
Mhm.
Was the and this is just a quick side note here, but the alliteration that's in here, the foot fungus,
Yeah.
faucet failure, get geeked,
Mhm.
reborn to rebel. There's a bunch of songs with
Yeah.
alliteration that I think are hilarious. And I think that's one of the things about this song is there seems to be this like um just fun,
Yeah.
carefree feeling and attitude. And I think Kenny Beats, as producer, really tapped into that and allowed Ski Mask to do
A
that
hundred
on this
percent. A
song.
100%. You know, one of the things that he said at the very end of that video I referenced um, was how when he makes music, and it was kind of advice to other producers, like when you make music, you have to include a little bit of your weird side, like your authentic side,
Yeah.
because otherwise what you're doing, I mean, arguably he was saying like, what you're doing doesn't have value if you don't include a piece of yourself. Like it's just going to be a beat. And to me, like you said, that's the difference between a beat maker and a producer. Is like a producer is investing, personally invested in the project, and they're not the star. I don't know, it's not about them, but by it not being about him, it became exactly about him. Does that make sense? Where like if he were
Yeah.
trying to make the greatest beat ever and have all these like synths and horns and chopped up samples, like the song wouldn't be what it is. But it's this perfect mixture of like it's clearly focused on Ski Mask's voice, but there's also a bunch of dope shit happening in the beat that just amplifies what Ski Mask is saying, and yeah.
Yeah, this beat, there's something he doesn't talk about in the video that I wish I could see another video of him discussing just this,
Mhm.
is that, and I don't know when it came about. Like, did it come about because of something Ski Mask said over the beat, or did it come about because of just Kenny Beats?
Mhm.
Um, and this is something that I love when hip hop does. It's one of my favorite things about hip hop is like understanding the lineage of it
Mhm.
and what inspiration people are drawing from, and taking something that was someone else's and turning it into your own.
Mhm.
I think is one of the most beautiful things about hip hop.
Absolutely.
Um, and this song, the drum pattern
Mhm.
and some of the vocals are straight from "Drop It Like It's Hot,"
Yeah.
Snoop and Pharrell,
Yep.
and I think that's brilliant. There was an Instagram post of Ski Mask, I think, sitting in the studio, and he tags Pharrell and Snoop in it, I think.
Mhm.
And initially I was like, why is he tagging Pharrell and Snoop? Like, that doesn't make any sense. And then it occurred to me like, oh, this song is You know, the drum pattern is drop it like it's hot.
Yeah.
He's doing that
That's
same yeah, exactly. Where in Drop It Like It's Hot, it's Snoop, you know, it's Pharrell saying Snoop.
Mhm.
Um, he's doing that, and then he's, you know, following that same melodic pattern that Snoop does and Pharrell does on Drop It Like It's Hot.
Yeah.
It's so cool, and that like callback to something that I loved, you know, 15 years ago or whenever that was.
Yeah.
Um, it just evokes this nostalgia that I don't even realize I need at that moment,
Yeah.
and I love it for that.
Yeah, it also just kind of brings you to either to or up to their level, you know, like it makes you kind of
Mhm.
understand where they're coming from. Cause like, I mean,
Totally.
it's not really about a lot of times well, I think with all music, it's not really about the words, it's really about the feeling. And so
Mhm.
the song that I thought of a different song that does this, it's a Key Glock song. I think it's called Doe, where he interpolates the one to the two to the three and to the four, and
Mm.
just that, like when he does that, it's the exact same thing for me where I'm like, it evokes nostalgia, but it also makes me like rap along with the rest of the song that of Key Glocks, and it just helps me like
Yeah.
it helps me catch the beat, so to speak, of like, all right, I get it. I get what this is about because he spoke in a language that I understand, you know?
Yeah, and it lets me imagine Ski Mask, young Ski
Mm-hmm.
Mask listening to Drop It Like It's
Yeah.
Hot, same way that I did, you know? So,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love it.
And you know, I'm almost like I shouldn't even be embarrassed to admit this, but I didn't even realize that that was what Ski Mask was referencing. I thought he was just being silly. See, and that's what I'm talking about though, is like there it's what seems silly and simple in hip hop is actually like layers deep. I mean, hip hop is such a
Yeah.
deep culture that something as silly as saying skr is like actually a 20-year a reference 20 years in the making. You know?
Yeah, I didn't catch it the first time or two I listened to the song. Like I recognized the pattern, but
Mhm.
I didn't intellectualize it like, "Oh, this is where that's from," you know?
Yeah.
It's just a part of hip hop now. That's how it felt to me when it happened the first time that I
Yeah.
heard it. It just felt like hip hop.
Well, and it's
Can
interesting.
I go
Sorry, what?
can I go on a tangent rabbit
Oh,
hole
go. Go.
sidebar about this?
Yeah.
Um, so I looked this up. Drop It Like It's Hot has been sampled 63 times, um, including multiple times by Snoop himself. and and last episode we talked about diss tracks, right?
Mhm.
The day we recorded that episode, later in the day, Pusha T put out a diss track going at McDonald's filet of
Yeah.
fish,
Oh,
which
man.
which sounds like the most ridiculous thing to say. It was paid for by Wendy's,
Yeah.
and considering, I don't know if you've heard this either, but Pusha T claims that he wrote the "ba da ba ba ba, I'm
Really?
loving it" jingle.
I
Yeah,
mean,
he claims he wrote that.
sure, I believe it.
So Pusha T going at McDonald's now is kind of extra crazy, but that's not why we're here. We're in this rabbit hole because Snoop remade "Drop It Like It's Hot" into "Pocket Like It's
Oh
Hot,"
my
which was a
god.
commercial for Hot Pockets.
No, I don't remember this at all.
I didn't know about it at all until I went down this fucking internet rabbit hole, but I'm going to link the video of the Hot Pockets commercial in the show notes.
You know what's dude, I swear
Pocket like it's hot.
we're in some sort of like synchronicity with the universe because in I'm pretty sure in that episode or like that day we were talking about like, oh, I want to see what the next evolution of this like rappers talking about fast food is going to be, and then the next day
Mhm.
Pusha T's like, fuck the fillet of fish. Like it's like I don't know, dude, we're on some kind of like energy trail or some shit that's just like
Yeah.
synchronizing with hip hop. But God, hot pockets. You know, I mean, honestly, that statistic about the Snoop song probably isn't all that uncommon. I mean, people who remember Lil
Yeah.
Wayne's heyday probably know that he quoted himself more than other people probably did. Like he
Absolutely.
sampled his own lyrics. Like I feel like the Drought 3 would come out and then the Drought 4 would have a sample from the Drought 3 on it, you know? Like
For sure.
oh man.
Sometimes he would sample a song earlier on the album.
Yeah, yeah. So it just but that's like what makes hip hop uh, yeah, like part of what makes it so rewarding. It's like a big and I know I'm going to lose like Chris with this reference, but it's kind of like reading like a big manga or like One Piece or some shit that's
Mm,
been existing for like 20 years where like if you've been on this ride the whole time, then every little thing that happens is a treat, you know? Like everything is
yeah.
cool. But if you're just picking up hip hop volume 888 and reading it without any of the context of the previous volumes, you're probably like, I don't get it. You know, like, and that's kind of what that makes
Yep.
me think of is like you almost either have to be there or you have to like go backwards and like crate dig basically and learn all of these albums because then yeah you go back and you're like shit like so when 21 Savage said this he was actually referencing this event and this show that happened, you know, it's like insane, dude.
Yeah. I had coming out of high school, I had two roommates in a row who were Star Wars fanatics.
Mm-hmm.
And, they got Star Wars magazine delivered to the apartment, and we played Star Wars Trivial Pursuit every fucking night. So I got to know the Star Wars canon pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's what it reminds me of
Yeah.
is that, there will be something mentioned in a Star Wars film that
Mm-hmm.
isn't in any of the other films, but they will know it
Yep.
because they've read all the books that are in the canon.
Yeah, dude, that's actually it's exactly what how hip hop works. I mean, that's why I say over and over that hip hop fans like they like to act hard, but they're a bunch of nerds. Like it works exactly the
Bunch of
same.
nerds.
Me hearing Key Glock reference Dr. Dre is no different than me watching Book of Boba Fett and watching Cad Bane come on the
Mhm.
screen and be like, "Oh, it's fucking
Yep,
Cad Bane." Like it's the exact same like part of your brain that's triggered, you know?
totally.
And yeah, that's again that's part of what makes it so cool is that it is a big story and it has, you know, lineage, you know, nothing. I would argue to say that like almost nothing in hip hop is done unintentionally. Like everything has some sort of purpose even when it looks like just some young rapper having fun, you know.
Yeah, yep. I like that earlier in, this conversation you mentioned that music is about how it makes you
Yeah.
feel. Um, and for me, this song exemplifies that hugely.
Yeah.
It makes me want to dance,
Yeah. Yeah.
Like now I live in the middle of Wyoming. There's no hip hop in Wyoming. There are no clubs
What?
I can go to
What?
unless I want to fucking, country swing or something. There's no club I can go to.
Yeah.
But this song makes me want to dance. It pulls up images of Snoop and the Drop It Like It's Hot
Yeah.
video dancing. Like I'm over here trying to dance in black and white like Snoop was. And I mean, this is the category of song that I don't really listen to the lyrics.
Yeah.
Like I'll sing along with it. I'll know the
Yeah,
lyrics,
same.
but I never really pay attention to what's being said.
Yeah.
And I think those songs are necessary. As much of a like lyrical head that I am,
Mhm.
and when I'm making my own songs, it's all about the lyrics. It's all about the message. I
Right.
want to put something forth through my music.
Mhm.
But this kind of song is so fucking necessary.
100%. Yeah, I agree. I mean, you know, talking about it now, I realize like that song was teaching me how to not take everything so seriously. You know, like if
Mhm.
you if you're friends with me or you've worked with me or anything like that, you know that I'm a very like creative and driven, ambitious kind of person. And I am so like with music, that's how I was treating music, where I wanted to have to work for my meal with music. Like I always had to
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
wanted to have to print off the Aesop Rock lyrics, like I wanted to have to really think hard
Mhm.
about what Lupe meant when he said this and that verse, and it like coincided with something he said 5 songs. Like that's how I viewed hip
Yeah.
hop. Um, and that song just made me feel like I didn't have a care in the world, and like I just wanted to cut
Mhm.
loose and have fun with my life. And in that particular point of my life, that was a lesson that I really needed, like was to learn how to take life seriously, but also not seriously, like to let it to kind of just like go with it and obviously control what you can, but maybe you don't need to, just like fucking wow out. Like I'm still not super good at doing that, but that was definitely a step I needed
Same.
to take in terms of like just letting myself relax sometimes. And not every lyric I remember needs to be this like complex like poem. Like sometimes it can just be Captain Long John Silver, I'm gonna reel him in, you know, which is like arguably
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
catchiest thing that he says. It's so fucking stupid, but I love it. It just cracks me up.
Yeah, there's a lot of that in this song. Um, question for you,
Hmm.
which might lead us down another rabbit hole or tangent. Something we haven't talked about much on this podcast, that you do reference in this episode
Hmm.
is that we're both rock climbers.
Hmm.
Um, you were a route setter
Right.
for years. For the uninitiated who are listening, essentially, what Devin did was create the routes, the courses that
Hmm.
climbers would perform on. Um, it strikes me that that's quite a bit like what Kenny Beats was
Yeah.
doing here for Ski Mask. And when you're going in to set a route for a climber, you choose what the flavor of it is. You know,
Hmm.
you choose what the climber's going to get out of it. Um,
Hmm.
were there times when, because I know coming up as a route setter, you're like, I have to learn the technical parts. I have to understand how to do these
Yeah.
things, how to force the climber into these situations. Were there times where it was like, I'm just going to make a thing that's going to be fun?
Hmm.
It's not necessarily going to be this big lesson,
Yeah.
but, and I just want to see what these people do over it.
Yeah. Yeah. It all comes together. That that gosh, that song was more important to me than I realized, because at that time in my route setting career, I had pretty much hit the limit of like technical things I could learn about route setting. I'm not saying that I was the master of everything. I'm just saying that at the end of the day, there's only so many configurations of so many holds, and there's only so many movements you can make people do. And I was really struggling to figure out how to take my route setting to the next level. And yeah, that was like, I actually did a route setting clinic probably like a year or two after I heard that song. And the biggest piece of advice that I had gotten from my like course instructors was, Devin, like, how to route set, you just think too hard. Like you need to just like set sometimes.
Mm.
You need to just put
Who were the
it was
instructors?
John Muse and Phil. I can't remember Phil's last name, and Nick O. Those were the three that were there.
Mm.
So
Nice.
yeah, I guess those names don't mean anything to the hip hop heads, but they're just really experienced route setters. But yeah, it was Phil specifically that had come up to me and was giving me like some feedback and was like, Devin, like you're a good route setter. You obviously know what you're doing, but you just take too long because you're overthinking it. Like you're trying, like just put the holds on the wall and don't worry about it,
Mm.
and then like a year later, I went to a different route setting clinic, or I went to the Setter Showdown, which is a route setting competition with Louis Anderson, and he basically, it was like the moment in Karate Kid where like or like martial arts films where like the student like is acknowledged by the master, where he was like, you
Yeah.
were a good,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
once Louis Anderson said you were a good route setter, I actually believed it. And I was like, oh, I can just like do what I want now. like and I can just cut loose and have fun with this and not worry about if it's going to be good. I can just make something, and it doesn't have to have a lesson. I don't need to be like, oh, this climber is going to learn how to do this, or they're going to have this specific experience. I can just literally make a piece of art and have people interact with it. And so yeah, the dude,
Yep.
that's crazy. This is what I mean about hip hop, is like, it just, I think that was a seed that was planted in my head 3 years ago, and then it, like, life just kept making me hit that lesson, like run into that brick wall over and over again until I actually got it and was like, "Oh, I'm supposed to not be serious all the time, and not everything needs to have this deep meaning to it. I can just do shit, you know?"
Yeah. Hip hop taught us everything,
Se-
even just having fun.
Seriously. Yeah, man, that's gosh, that's really cool. I feel like we're like in my like therapy session right now. So if you're still listening.
Well, to continue the metaphor here, the best routes in climbing
Mhm.
in the gym have these like clever little moments.
Right.
They might just be really fun. They might flow really nicely, but then there's this clever moment that just makes you grin.
Yeah. Yeah.
The best climbs have that, and for me, this song has a couple of those moments that I found myself after listening to it
Yeah.
repeatedly, like waiting for and smiling when they
Yeah.
happened. And the first one is like, it's like the eighth time in the song that he says okay.
Mhm.
And but in that one, he adds this pause where he's like, okay.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I just love that little pause. Like, it throws me off for just a second and brings me back into the song.
Yeah.
Makes me smile every time.
Yeah.
And then I also love this moment, and I love this in hip hop in general, when um like Eminem is a fucking master at this, where artists follow the drum pattern for a second.
Yeah.
I love it. And there's this very quick moment, but he highlights it. Like, he gets out his, like, bright yellow highlighter
Mhm.
and runs it over these two words where he says, "I'm a go get
Yes.
everything mother or
Yeah,
transcends." And
yeah.
every time I hear it, I'm like,
It's so
yes.
fucking good. Yeah.
It's like he understands the technical side of it. He learned how to paint
Yep.
traditionally, and now he can do whatever he wants on the canvas.
Exactly. Yeah, you pointed out a lot of things that I love about just like the way the song flows. And I don't mean to say that I'm gonna make a reference that sounds a little crazy, but it's almost kind of like what you just said of how Picasso learned how to. A lot of, I don't know if everyone knows this, but Picasso was really good at realism. Like when he was a
Yeah.
teenager, he hit probably the pinnacle of what you could paint in terms of like painting something that looked real, and that, but that was as a teenager. So this dude's really fucking good. And then that's when he starts to realize, oh, like I don't have to put the nose there, or I don't have to, this shit doesn't have to make literal sense. I can just do what I
Right.
want. And that's where cubism comes from. I think a lot of people don't realize, like, Picasso at any moment could have dropped the mic on us. Like he could have, like he was doing that because he had the freedom to do it. It's like the Kanye West line where he says like, "What you gonna do now? Whatever I want to do. Gosh, it's cool now." Like it's like I've
Yep.
already
Yep.
I've already shown you that I'm good. I don't have to make shit that is traditionally good anymore because I am that fucking good. Um, so that's kind of what I thought of when you were talking about how, like, he Ski Mask obviously knows how to rap. Like I'm sure
Yeah.
that if you gave him a 90s boom bap beat, that he could probably rap a serviceable verse with good metaphors and good rhyme schemes and all that, like traditionally good music. But he's but he's having fun with it. Like that is somebody that actually understands how music works. Yeah, and I agree with you. I love those moments where like he's following the pattern, or like you, and this is something that good rappers also do, is they set up a pattern and then they avert it because they know that you're
Yeah.
expecting them to say something or to say a rhyme, and then they switch it in a way that's like, oh shit, like I didn't expect that, but it's still kind of cool.
Yeah.
um
Totally.
on that note, I'm curious, do you have any, I know we talked on and on about how the lyrics aren't necessarily like profound, but do you have any lyrics or like sections of the song that, or bars that are particular favorites or standouts?
I do. I have. And this is like there's a lot of it that I love the feel of. Like
Hmm.
I love the way he's weaving in and out of the beat. Um, but like I mentioned here, like we've talked about, I'm a lyrical head, I like it when lyrics say something to me.
Hmm.
And he says, please take shelter, spit it like a pronounced letter.
Hmm.
That line, the spit it like a pronounced letter,
Yeah.
I fucking love, because I can just like I can imagine these moments of always white people
Mhm.
who are like enunciating as clearly as
Yeah.
possible, you know, and
Yeah.
are fucking spitting at me when they're talking, and I'm like, it drives me insane a little
Hmm.
bit.
Yeah.
There was definitely a moment, a period in my like hip hop education, um, 80s, sometime in the 80s,
Yeah.
when I was realizing that the way the rappers I really loved talked was different than the way that the people in my neighborhood talked,
Yeah.
and I was trying to mold my blending of words and syllables a little more like the rappers that I loved. And I
Yeah.
took it way too far.
Yeah.
There was definitely, late 80s, early 90s when I had trying to have a high top fade that I took it way,
Chris.
way
Oh
too
my
far.
god. Oh my
But
god.
there are no photos of that, I hope.
Uh,
Um,
oh shit, that's hilarious. It is funny. Like, you're totally right about the, like, I think in the Boondocks they say like, when white people talk, they say the whole word, like that sort of thing. But it's actually funny
yeah.
because early rappers, a lot of them really pronounce the words. I don't
Yeah.
know if that was a style
Yep.
thing or if they just thought that they had to like super enunciate in order for you to understand
Mhm.
them. But that might even be part of why people say like, oh, I don't understand rappers now. And it's like, well, it's not that you don't understand them, it's just that you're used to being like spoon fed the enunciation
Yeah.
through a microphone, like. So you made me think of that, of just like just the pronunciation and how funny that is. Yeah.
Yeah. I just love that visual, that spit it like a pronounced
Yeah,
letter. I love that visual.
it's really good.
What's your favorite bars here?
Well, I kind of gave it away, but I think my favorite part of the song is the Captain Long John Silver, I'm gonna reel a man, got on goat fur, cream color
Yeah.
coat from Burberry's den. Because not just because the Long John Silver, that's just funny, but the got on goat fur, cream color coat from Burberry's den, that just is like a beautiful like cellar door lyric. Like, it
Mhm.
flows,
Yeah.
it sounds like it should be hard to say, but once your mouth starts moving, it just fucking rolls off
Yeah.
the tongue. And so, yeah, like I think that's something that he does really well that isn't, I don't know, it should be appreciated more. It's just like he says things that flow well. And then
Mhm.
also switching up his flow, like there's a part where he's like, she got to go through him, just get through me, yes I'm the middleman. And yeah, like I
I'm
just
the
love that
middleman. Yeah, I
flow.
love that part.
It's good, dude. I mean, there's I don't know, there's so much. I'll just say it over and over again, but a song that seems so irreverent and like pointless is actually like really complicated. There's a lot to be unpacked from it. But yeah, I think my favorite thing about him in terms of a lyricist is the flow of some of the stuff he says and the character that he puts on it. um I don't think anybody else could say Captain Long John Silver, I'm gonna reel him in, and have me think that it sounds good. Like Jay-Z couldn't
Yeah.
be like,
No.
Captain Long John Silver.
Not good.
Like he couldn't like there's no way Jay-Z could say that and have it make I'd be like, what the fuck
Ah.
is Jay-Z talking about right now? you know? That's a great actually that's a great exercise for some hip hop fans is try to find like lines that you like by other rappers and try to like imagine how another rapper would say it, and that alone will tell you how important delivery is.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just
I fucking love it.
and now I'm gonna be thinking of Jay-Z trying to rap ski. It wouldn't work, dude. It would not work. Jay-Z wouldn't have made it to Reasonable Doubt if he rapped like that.
Well, I agree that like that's the like beauty of this thing is just the whole the simplicity of it is really fucking complicated.
Yeah.
It's very hard to make a song that just feels good.
Mm-hmm.
It's much easier, frankly. Certainly for me, it's what I'm steeped in to write complicated
Yep.
lyrics.
100%. Yeah.
To just do something that feels good is so underrated.
Yeah. I mean, and even to call back to, we were talking about climbing the other day, or not the other day, but during this conversation, but making a climb for people that is simply fun is hard to do because it's not, you can't quantify fun, like you can't say this song feels 88 units good, like there's no way. So but it's a lot easier to rely on technicality and like I know this is good because I have 8 rhyme schemes and like I have 10 references. Like that's not making music, and that's something that
Yeah.
I needed to learn is like making good music isn't just about being good at making music. You can be super good at music theory or route setting, whatever it is, but still not be like resonating with people because you're not putting yourself into it. You're just putting a bunch of throwing skill at it until it sticks, basically.
Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
huge lesson that I learned from this song.
All right, you wanna take us out of here?
I guess so. I could talk about this all day. Okay. If you are watching this on YouTube or listening to it anywhere but Spotify, then you are missing half of the podcast. Every other week, we release short, focus essays set to beats, followed by the full song that we're learning the lesson from. These are only available on Spotify Music and Talk. So we've got a lot of links.
And they're so fun to listen to.
Oh, yeah.
I just want to throw that in there. Like you and I never hear the finished episode until it's done because we aren't putting the full song after it when we're making it. It's so much fucking fun to hear.
That's
Foot Fungus right after this episode.
That's a good point. And thanks for calling that out, because I think that's something that we need to, that is really cool about what we're doing with this podcast, is that it's like wine tasting, like you're hearing about the song like in detail and all these emotions associated with it, and then the song plays immediately after. It completely changes how I listen to the songs, and I'm making the podcast.
Totally.
Like, so to listen to Kris talk about J. Cole's song and then immediately hear the song, it's like it just opens up this whole world of perception. So definitely thank you for saying that on Wax, because it's important. And additionally, just with this episode, we've got all the links and videos and bonus material for the blog posts will be at hiphoptaughtmeeverything.com. I'm pretty sure we'll link some things in the show notes of all the different videos and stuff we referenced.
pocket like it's
Yeah.
hot.
And honestly, if you're a young, or not even young, but just like an aspiring producer or just a producer, period, I would highly recommend watching that Kenny Beats video, because it's definitely maybe the favorite how it's made for music that I've ever watched. Just because he actually goes into the story of it and explain, like he's showing you his Pro Tools file, you know? Okay. And you can also find us on Instagram and Twitter, and we will see you next time when a froggy-voiced underground legend with the most expansive vocabulary in hip-hop of all time teaches Kris how to age gracefully.
I'm doing my best,
I
y'all.
think you're doing great, man.